what are the biggest hurdles international franchises face when entering Vietnam and Southeast Asia, and how can they overcome them?
I'll probably start with this one, Sean, if you don't mind. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think one of the biggest hurdles we see is understanding whether the market is genuinely ready for your brand. And we want to look beyond things like just population size and GDP growth, because that's a very larger than macro piece that people tend to sort of look at first. At GetMaps, we really break down the readiness into things like consumer demographics, retail maturity, and the competitive intensity, as well as the availability of these sort of infrastructures in whatever market that you're choosing to enter. Many brands tend to skip these steps and either enter too soon or miss the right timing. And really, our role here is to provide an evidence-based picture so that you know not just if you can enter, but where and at what pace as well. And I'll probably go into a little bit more detail as well. So if you're talking about looking at it from a macro market review, so slightly more granular than just GDP and population size, we map out the total retail potential using very granular demographic data that we built down to 150-meter grid. Just to imagine, 150 meters is very likely, shorter than a row of inline shop houses you will find anywhere in Southeast Asia. So that's very granular data. And with this granularity, we understand where people stay, we understand where they work, and whether or not they have that discretionary income to really purchase what you're selling. And that's very important because this really makes up what we call your addressable market. And you'll very likely hear me say this term quite a few times throughout today's session. So that's the total retail potential. We then want to also map out your competitor landscape to see how saturated that category that you are intending to enter in a particular country. As an example, in Vietnam's convenience sector, the bulk of the stores might still be concentrated very much in that tier one city mostly. That's a very clear indicator, leaving a clear gap in that tier two and tier three as that sort of white space within that country. And maybe one more thing I will also sort of mention is that network potential again. By modeling how many stores the market can realistically sustain for that whatever category that you intend to bring in, you can also understand where it's distributed across city tiers as well. So not just the tier one cities, but what does the tier two and tier three penetration sort of look like as well? Because we really want to balance that growth with sustainability. Keeping these three top of mind really lets you know whether, again, not only if you can enter, but at where and at what pace to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kai. Really interesting. This data analytics, making decision based on data is something that every company has to make. And when we talk to franchisors all around the world, one of the key things they always ask me is, what is the market potential for markets like Vietnam? What is it for the Philippines? What is it for Korea? And boy, if they had a tool and precise data like this, they could actually answer those questions themselves. And then based on that, can actually prioritize which markets they want to focus on first. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to tackle this question?
Yeah, actually, from the legal perspective, we think that the biggest challenges is about the legal compliance because the Southeast Asia does not have the uniform franchise specific law across the Southeast Asia, and each country will have their individual or their own law and requirement for the franchise activity, and both the franchisor and franchisee each country need to comply and understand to such regulation. And for example, some countries will have the specific law like Vietnam, Indonesia, or Malaysia. But for other country, the law regulate a franchise will be in many legislation, maybe in under the IP law or consumer protection law or competition law. And this is quite key important for the franchisor when they want to expand to each jurisdiction should be understand about this. For example, because we give some like Vietnam or Indonesia, when the franchisor want to expand the franchise in such country, they need to register the franchise registration with the authority before legally operate the franchise. And they also may need to, for other countries, they may also need to satisfy some disclosure document and to the franchisee before entering to the franchise agreement. Or they also need to register the trademark. So just when they quite understand or comply with the legal requirement, so the business will be more smoothly and or can stable um, um, running in practice.
Thank you, Mr. That is actually one of the key questions as well that we get asked is on the legal aspect. And I know in Southeast Asia, like you said, Vietnam does has franchising laws, but it's actually very straightforward and very manageable if you're prepared. And some countries are a little bit more difficult and challenging, but certainly for sure you can overcome them. Chris, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, just to chime into that original question, just one observation I've seen many times with franchisees coming into Vietnam is what I call the assumption trap. You know, we all assume what's worked well where we come from is going to be perfect fit here for Vietnam. And you know, I've even seen this so ingrained, like let's call it not just individual or team, but institutional bias, where we have fallen in love with our own idea, our concept, our offering. So what I always try to encourage is the importance of building on the data, what the data is sharing. Yes, as Sean and Kai have shared, but also getting out there on the street and taking your idea and getting it in front of your target audiences as quickly as possible, so we have that reality of what people really think and how we then need to really localize and shape that to be the best fit for the market. So very important to fight assumption traps. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great point. In franchising, of course, some of the terminology we use for that is localization, but it's not just localization of products and services, but it may potentially be the brand itself, like you said.